It's 2 o'clock. We want to go ahead and get started because we know everybody's busy. I have up here, they brought several copies of the final report for the Connected Communities Initiative. This is the partnership that TVA had with FPU, and it was great timing. It just kind of hit at the exact same time that we were doing it, well, right before. So a lot of the information, a lot of the data, studies, and everything that they put together for this report dovetails very nicely into what we're trying to do here with our comprehensive plan. So we've asked TVA and Guidehouse to come. Christian Berglund's here, Georgia Carruthers from TVA, and they were gracious enough to come here and to share some of the information. They're going to talk to us today about how some of their findings dovetails into what we're trying to do. Croy Engineering was glad to be able to have some more data to roll in and consider. So this is just really good timing. So everybody, make sure you get a copy of that report, and then it'll be addressed here in just a little bit. As we get started today, Ethan Green with Croy is online with us today. So he'll be opening our discussion here in just a minute. Houston Matthews couldn't be here today, but I do want to tell you how much I appreciate everybody being here. And again, we'll try to constrain this to 1 hour, but we've got a lot to talk about. I think we had a good response to the information request that Croy sent out in those forms. A lot of it was I was noticing as I was compiling all the information that we had a lot of duplicate ideas, and so that's probably a good thing because we're kind of on the same page and have some main themes that keep reoccurring, so that's a good thing. But we'll talk about all of that. So without wasting any more time, I will turn it over to Ethan Green with Croy Engineering.
Everyone, can everyone hear me? My audio coming through clearly there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. All right. I don't know if there's a video feed there. I'm going into this a little blind, but I'm just imagining everybody is smiling and happy to see me, so that's the picture I've got one in my head. We'll start off number 2 on our agenda here, summary of status discussion items. We are sort of ending our existing conditions phase and starting to move into our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, sort of where we are on the timeline. We have a rough draft of that. Then we will take sort of the feedback that we have from you, the initial analysis that we prepared, and then prepare a survey around it, some ideas, and take that for a public engagement phase. And then we'll compile that information and head into the back end of the plan from there. But just so you know, we're kind of about, we're still in the early phases. We haven't started the SWOT analysis yet, with the exception of your input, that we will discuss kind of in greater detail later. I'm not going to share anything in my screen, and we won't go over this at this point, comment by comment. I'm going to sort of highlight some themes that I saw in each category. And if there's discussion that arises around those, great. I think that more discussion will come when we start preparing public engagement materials to support some of those ideas. But I am going to at least highlight some of the major themes that I saw. Going to pop up on each one of those. Vision statement, also got a lot of feedback on that. Some of it was editorial, some of it was a complete rewrite of the vision statement. We obviously I can't use 3 or 4 different people's paragraph. So what I'm going to do is give it my best effort to incorporate the themes or ideas of each comment or feedback that I received, and I'll prepare a draft of that and send that over to Daniel, and then it will be added to the beginning of the existing conditions report kind of in the introduction section, so when you all get your hands on a copy of the existing conditions report, you can review that. We're going to go ahead and move in, well, so after that, after I've kind of gone over where we are, our feedback, your homework from last round, the last thing that you all have to do is public engagement. We'll touch on that briefly. We're getting close to the point where we need to pick a date. I don't think we need to do that at this meeting, so don't worry about pulling out your calendars for that, but we're getting closer, so we need to start preparing for that. And then after we've touched on public engagement, I'll turn it over to Christian and Georgia so we can hear sort of about their initiative, and then we'll talk about action items from the committee and schedule our next meeting. So moving into data collection, I received, it was great to meet everybody in person and get a hold of everybody's contact information. I received everything that I need or that I think I'm going to get. The biggest glaring lack of data that might actually sort of be a hindrance is currently with our in our transportation section. The format of the data exists is not, well, it will be very time consuming to work with. So I'll do my best with what we've got, but when you take a look at existing conditions, realize that there's data limitations there. I do have good news on that front. Daniel has yesterday or the day before, recently this week, forwarded an email to me. They have been coordinating with TDOT to update the major thoroughfares plan. So TDOT, I believe, is going to get me some of their data, which will help supplement that and sort of bolster efforts there. But as you get your hands on at least the rough draft of the existing conditions report, know that we're one step behind on transportation than where everything else is because of data. And if we get some good data from TDOT, then we can bring that up. And if the data from TDOT is supplemental, then we can address that at our next meeting about how in depth we may want to go with transportation versus thinking about a dedicated transportation plan further down the line. We've also recently got some new information, some new plans from TVA in collaboration with Guidehouse, so you'll hear more about that later, but very exciting. Like Daniel said, it's always great to get new data, new information. A lot of this is going to be sort of side by side or dovetail. What they're looking at isn't specifically what we're addressing. We're not going to be spending a whole lot of time looking specifically at, say, something like technology, but in terms of our housing and community development, that's going to play a huge role. Anytime we talk about economic development, that will play a huge role as a way to bolster or attract. And based on our SWOT feedback, I think that is maybe a higher priority to you all than we initially laid this plan out to be. So I think that feedback's helpful, but we'll see when we go over it the highlights that I found and how once we hear the presentation from Christian and Georgia, how their work might fit in together with that. Project update, existing conditions. You all got the gist of it. Transportation is a little bit behind everything else. I'm hoping to have a draft into Daniel's hands, ideally into July. It may get pushed into the first week of August, and then he'll be able to distribute that to you all for feedback. I'm not going to put in I won't make a PDF with fill in the blanks. I'll just send one PDF document to you all, and you're welcome to copy and paste that text into a Word document and add comments, or copy and paste it into an email and send that email to Daniel and back to me. Or if you have access to Adobe software, you can mark up the PDF document itself, either with comments or sticky notes, or Dan Dobry, my coworker here, he loves to just print stuff out. Is a physical media kind of guy, so you can get the PDF, print it out, mark it up with a blue pen if you like it, or red pen if you don't, scan it back in and send it to me that way. All of that's fine. But I'm hoping to get that to you all by the end of the month. So that would be sort of one of the homework items in between now and our next meeting. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on community development based on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, feedback that I've gotten. The zoning component is looking tip-top. And the utilities, after some data coordination, is in a better place now as well. So all in all, I think we're in a good place there. So that moves us into feedback we've got for the vision statement. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because, like I said, it was mostly editorial. I got some, change this word to that word, make sure you include this word. I got some kind of major rewrites. One thing I noticed we haven't really discussed this, and so maybe this is something that we can pull out of that as an action item for you all, or perhaps if time allows us at the end of the meeting, open this up to discussion. Currently, the name of this plan, 2045 Lincoln County Comprehensive Plan, a lot of times in conjunction with the vision statement, there will be sort of a name outside of the bland text. So, moving forward, or Lincoln County Next, or Future Lincoln, or et cetera. So I don't know if we feel strongly about that or are sort of indifferent, but that is something that we can brainstorm in conjunction with our vision statement as a title to coordinate with Lincoln County Comprehensive Plan. But mostly we have the same overarching themes, which is that people want to see growth. They don't want to really change the nature or the fabric of Lincoln County and what makes Lincoln County so special. We see 570 square miles of Southern hospitality 2 or 3 times. So that's great. And then we're going to see a lot of these comments come out in our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which I'll move into now. A lot of the strengths comments sort of dovetail into that vision statement, strengths and opportunities. So I'll move straight into SWOT feedback and strength. I'll kind of go over the highlights here. For strengths, a lot of it was focused on community. That word comes up a lot. There's a lot of pride in the local community, support for local community events, even certain organizations, people like the hospital system, people are proud of the law enforcement and felt relatively safe, emergency response, public safety measures, all of which sort of combine into this overarching sense of community. There's a high level of social trust and pride in the place that you live and work, which sounds like a no-brainer, but isn't true everywhere. And so that is really great to see. Pride in Main Street and leveraging partnerships, county cultural norms and desire to maintain a high quality of life, efforts to retain traditions and culture, a great atmosphere, natural beauty. So I think that that is going to be the big one that I saw the most often. Community events and organizations again. Non-urban agricultural, Elk River came up a lot as well. So some of your natural features were included a lot, and then proximity to Huntsville, to Nashville, to Lynchburg, to Chattanooga. So your ability to get sort of a non-urban lifestyle while still having proximity to the amenities that come with a larger urban area were all strengths that multiple people pointed out. And so, you know, every pros list has its cons list to go with it. Here's some highlights from the weaknesses. A lot of it has to do with a word that we're taught not to use, which is tax. There was the acknowledgement that there is either perhaps not a low tax rate, but a low tax base. The revenue generation is small, which makes the city and the county's budget small, makes it harder to provide the public services necessary to generate the growth that Lincoln County residents see happening in surrounding counties, which can be frustrating. That was the number one most shared comment, had to do with some, you know, it was relating to tax base, tax revenue, tax collection. So I appreciate the committee's ability to reflect internally and sort of acknowledge some things that will be challenges. Another issue was housing. The lack of affordable housing or lack of the growth in housing, which are connected. You know, if you don't build new housing and your population grows, or old housing becomes dilapidated, the existing stock just becomes more expensive. And as construction costs get more and more expensive, square footage prices go up. So replacing is difficult. Lack of amenities is another one. And so you're going to see when we move into our opportunities and threats that there are a lot of conflicting is not the right word. There are a lot of ideas that are in tension with one another that the committee is going to have to wrestle with, and then the elected officials are going to have to wrestle with, and that we're going to have to highlight and put on display and ask for feedback on comes to receiving public engagement. So I'll give you an example. It looks like everybody wants to see growth. Everybody in Lincoln County wants to see Lincoln County thrive and be successful. It's clear that people love the community, and if you love something, you don't want it to wither and die. And so that comes across very strongly. There also is a really, really strong connection and appreciation to the undeveloped and agricultural nature of Lincoln County. Those things operate in tension with one another, because new housing stock means new development, means land for new development. Same with new industry. You know, when you look at a larger urban area, there are a lot of places for infill. That's not necessarily the case in a county that is largely agricultural. So when we think of that in context of public engagement, you know, you sort of ask, okay, where are areas that we can target growth, and where are areas that we need to preserve, both in terms of natural context and agricultural context. You know, that'll be a key issue when it comes to do we like our zoning code the way it is? Do we need to expand the zoning code? Do we need to limit our zoning code? All of which will incentivize developers or disincentivize developers one way or another. And so those sort of are tough conversations that sort of show up here. Moving into opportunities, we'll leader across the state in natural resources and farmland. Elk River comes up a lot. So when it comes to preservation, park space, or even you know, when we look at transportation or community development and funding opportunities, you can look at you know, rural transportation organization, TDOT, and FHWA transportation alternatives funding, Tiger grants to do linear park along the river. You know, those are sort of the great things that you can do. I got a statistic in one person's comments about agritourism, so opportunities there to grow tourism within the existing context of the county. You know, huge opportunity. Another way that Lincoln County lives in tension is opportunities and strengths. Everybody listed their proximity to Huntsville. However, when we started seeing comments about tax base, that was also a unique challenge or threat that Lincoln County faces that other counties don't necessarily face, because they aren't on the border of Tennessee and Alabama and aren't as close to Huntsville as the other counties that neighbor you all. The sales tax is the way that we generate most of our revenue. You know, of course, there's property tax, but there's no income tax in Tennessee. So our sales tax is higher. So people who live here can go drive 30 to 45 minutes to an hour into Huntsville to do all of their shopping. And then there are more amenities there, so they may do their night out for you know, restaurants or whatnot, and just take advantage of what's offered in Huntsville, which hurts the commercial growth in Lincoln County. So it is both a strength in that you have that agricultural lifestyle within a close proximity to an urban place. Huntsville has done a great job of remaining affordable, more so than most metros in the United States. In fact, when you control for population size, It's on like the top 10 list in terms of keeping its housing prices low. But even so, you know, you're competitive in that regard. So, you know, there's the attraction there to live in a tax-free state and then shop in a low sales tax state. So that's certainly a threat. So it's both an opportunity in that you have that proximity to the metro area. You're closer to Huntsville than your peers, but it comes with its challenges as well. So, you know, those are things that will need to be addressed. I think, and I haven't really talked to Daniel in depth about this, but I think perhaps the best way that we can start this conversation is when we put together our public engagement survey and materials, in addition to seeking feedback from you all on how that looks and getting comments, we'll also ask you all to be our first wave. You know, we'll open it up to you all to fill out before everyone else. And that will sort of be a starting point for these conversations. So when it comes to growth, you know, a lot of you recognize the need for more industry and then more commercial activity. And a lot of that, a lot of commercial activity is, you know, obviously it's dictated by the private developer, both the builder who's going to come in and build it, and then you need somebody who is willing to lease the space at the price that's provided. A lot of that, especially in terms of larger chains that might be economic development anchors that can bring a new wave of retail or commercial activity into a place, use population density as a prime indicator of whether or not their business will be successful. So there's another piece of that tension. You know, everybody wants amenities, so they want amenities to be closer, and they want newer and nicer amenities. But that does mean, you know, allowing more housing. But I think that's going to be a trade-off that we talk about. Is not only are we allowing it, but where are we putting it? Because a solution that might sort of show up here is you know, targeted growth that will support a higher population density in areas where we want to see a boost to commercial activity while preserving sort of an agricultural and natural resources elsewhere in the county. That will also require close coordination with the municipalities within the county. That's another challenge here, is we understand that the context of this plan is specifically for Lincoln County, but that doesn't mean that we can ignore everything that our cities are doing within the county. And a good working relationship with them will make this plan more effective. Yeah, opportunities are a lot of Elk River, housing, opportunities for new housing, opportunities for new industry, agro-tourism, and the Elk River developments in terms of Riverwalk, in terms of tech industries, in terms of development industries, being strategic about how to utilize that resource. And then lastly, threats. We see taxes show up again. We see lack of vision, which people are encouraged by the planning efforts going on here. You know, Alabama being a lower sales tax was listed on the threats a couple times. Increasing traffic to metro areas is a threat. You obviously, Lincoln County is not going to be building roads into Alabama, let alone all the way to Huntsville. And that's a two-state coordination project there, inexpensive, and so long as population continues to grow in Huntsville, which we expect that it will, that drive just becomes longer and longer, even though the mileage stays the same, so that's a threat. And then another one that I saw multiple times is just aging, both in terms of population, in terms of housing stock, in terms of infrastructure. Okay, there's a want to be recognized the need for growth, and with that new development, but do we have the infrastructure to support that? And what is that going to cost? And what does planning for that look like? So that's a threat, for sure. So that's sort of that. Those are the highlights. And what I'm going to do with this is this will be released as an appendix at the end of the existing conditions report. It eventually will be at the end of the planning document with other as a public engagement appendix of all the feedback that we got. But just so everyone can read the comprehensive list of what I saw and what we're using to sort of move forward, is I'll release this as an appendix and send it out with our existing conditions reports so you can read over the totality of comments. It's been turned into a bulleted list. It's just broken down by strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. They're all sort of identifying features have been removed from it. So any information that goes into the report in terms of feedback, both from the board and from the general public, will be as anonymous as possible. We won't use names or email addresses. If you're using some sort of phrase or distinctive writing style that everybody in the community knows you from, there's not much I can do about that. But outside of that, we'll do our best to make sure that the input that we receive is blind, so that we can approach it from as objective a standpoint as possible. So that moves us into public engagement. We did receive some additional ideas of channels to promote our public engagement efforts, both organizations, media outlets, email lists, community groups, etc. Didn't receive a whole lot of new ideas for exactly how we want to utilize Troy's Public Engagement Day, and potentially, there might be a larger effort on the behalf of the steering committee. Like I've said before, as far as our efforts concerned, we'll come down and run a public engagement meeting for a day in the most strategically advantageous way we can, but that doesn't prohibit the steering committee or other groups from continuing to do in-person public engagement. So that is the update there. If our timeline is to wrap up existing conditions in the next week or so, and then get feedback from you and start the rough draft of SWOT, that puts us into sort of an early September timeline for finishing, to getting everybody the SWOT conditions, the SWOT analysis. I also think that is going to be about the timeline we're looking at for our next meeting. So that I would imagine that in order to prep for appropriate advertisement, that we're looking at probably October, anytime in that month. I remember there were a few things. There was a fair, there were a couple of other community events that were happening roughly in that time frame. Some of them might have been late September. Like I said, I don't think we need to decide on that date today, but I want everybody to have in their minds that probably in terms of how the plan is moving so far. We want to target October, and I think in between now and our next meeting, we'll facilitate, we'll communicate through Daniel and kind of create a public engagement strategic promotion plan and pick a date that will be disseminated to you all that you can then send to your community groups to advertise how you'd like. With that, I've taken up just under 40 minutes, and so I will turn it now over to Christian and Georgia for their presentation. Appreciate both of you for coming out, for sharing your work, and for being a part of this. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Sure. Dan, do you have thoughts on how you wanted to start this? You sort of want to have us talk through our approach, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, it's up to you. Whatever you think is the best way to address it.
Sure. So, everybody's got a copy of the report now, right? Just making sure nobody was left empty-handed. All right. So just to fill everyone in, like what was this thing we did? The TVA Connected Communities Initiative is really there to help communities work through these kind of challenges. Like the world's changing really, really fast. Rural communities don't necessarily have the capacity to navigate those changes on their own. TVA is providing communities with support to help them do that. So a lot of what you see here is this is the output of a year of support. Thank you to FPU for being our guinea pig with this offering and bringing us into help Fayetteville, help Lincoln County work their way through some of these challenges. Where does the community want to be? We did a lot of similar work to what Croy is doing in terms of visioning, goals assessment. We did a SWOT analysis. I think ours was a little bit less involved. Sounds like they're doing really, really great work here. But we heard a lot of the same things. How do we enhance the community's appeal? How do we ready ourselves for all this growth? How are we prepared for it? What you've got in front of you is just us consolidating all of that work from what we started a year ago to what our final output was when we were here. I guess it was a month ago now. So this is there to be an evergreen resource for you. We tried to look through and find a number of case studies aligned with kind of similar conditions. I think we work in a lot of rural communities. What I sometimes find frustrating is people who don't know rural communities come in and they're like, well, the city of 500,000 people did it, why can't you? And it's like, well, it's not quite the same thing, right? So what we tried to do here is respond to the conditions in Lincoln County, give you something that's pretty applicable here, ideally, to things that you can action. I know you all just got the report, so we're happy to answer any questions you have. I think it'd take us a long time to run through the whole thing, but Daniel, do you have anything you'd like to riff on that's in here, or anything else you'd like us to speak to?
Could you touch on maybe the housing piece?
So yeah, that's it's a relatively small portion of the report, but I think I'll preface this with we're working with a few communities located between Nashville and Huntsville, right? And the pressures you are facing are the pressures that every community across the region is facing. You're used to being pretty affordable. That's why you move here. That's why you like living here. And all of a sudden, growth is an amazing opportunity, but it's also it's changing the community potentially. We were just Georgia and I were chatting during the presentation, and we have pretty close to the folks up the road in Bedford County, and they're a little bit farther along in their comprehensive planning process. And Daniel, I'd love to connect you with that, with their chief planner and their county commissioners to talk through what they're doing. They're also a little closer to Nashville. They're facing the crunch a little more, I think, just because Murfreesboro is right up the road, and it's at their gates, So, but I think the biggest thing here, and I think what Ethan was saying really is we're not here to preach, right? We're just here to tell you what your options are. But if you've got those pressures coming in and you want more economic vibrancy, you need to figure out a way to get housing built, basically. And I think where communities go wrong, and this is from me having been in this space for a long time, is just if you try to prevent growth, it tends to end up not working in your favor. You really need to capture it and figure out how to guide it in the direction you want it to be guided in. So that's like, some communities are like, we want to maintain our character, we'll just prevent anything from changing. It's like, you're going to be better off guiding the change than trying to prevent it entirely. I don't mean to be overly generic in saying that, but I think you're going down the right pathway just by being in this room today and getting this plan together and, trying to figure out a way forward where you can use that pressure and point it in the direction you want instead of having it point you in a direction that you don't want to go in. I think one thing we found with affordable housing, and with this partnership thing that we've been doing with FPU, we really let the community guide the direction to go in. We had one community that just asked us to focus almost exclusively on housing. And some of these materials you see were developed of that. We also have an affordable housing guide, which I know I sent your way, Daniel, if you want to distribute that to the rest of the group. And one of the big challenges here is people don't even know what affordable housing is, right? It's like we know that the rent is too expensive now. It's more expensive than it used to be. If you see on slide 75, or page 75 rather, typically the sort of baseline number you're looking for is 30% of household income. And that's combining your rent and your mortgage, your housing taxes, and your utilities. So, good rule of thumb, and what we hear consistently, particularly when we're talking to folks in the public sector, is our teachers can't afford housing, our police officers can't afford housing, our nurses can't afford housing. You want to think about, all right, where is our housing coming in, and where are those salaries coming in, and how do we solve that? And it's not just we need to pay everybody more, it's also we need to figure out what that affordable pathway is. There's different ways to do that. That's why you're working with Croy here. They're going to help you work through those challenges. But that's fundamentally the challenge you're working through here. Is it's a math problem of the numerator and the denominator, right? It's how much does housing cost? How much are people making? Is that above 30% or is it below 30%? So Daniel, I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you look at page 76. The key thing here is, you think about housing, there's no single answer, right? There's no single stakeholder that's going to come in and do this. Like in big cities, sometimes everyone will be like, oh, we need a government to solve it. In small towns, it's, we just need a developer to come in. But really, everybody needs to be involved here, both in enabling a pathway for housing to be constructed in the way that you want it to be, in the places you want it to be. Engaging government where appropriate, engaging nonprofits that might have access to low-cost financing for housing, things like that. Like you're going to be better off with an all-hands-on-deck approach. That doesn't mean everyone is involved to the same degree, but it's going to be a multifaceted approach that's going to solve that best for you. And so page 77 here, Daniel, this is the one that you and I talked through before, and I think if you can kill some time off with this group, and you're going to want some time to sink into this, but defining your goals is a really big part of this. So, we say affordable housing. This is what I was saying. Like, what does that mean? We want more affordable housing. Okay, what's our pathway? What makes sense for our community? Because for a city of 10,000, a city of 100,000, a city of 1 million, those are going to have very different answers. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and the different roles that people play are going to vary pretty significantly. So, do you want to advance low-income home ownership? Do you want actual affordable housing, like Section 9 public housing? Do you want more housing stability services to make sure that current renters don't get pushed out or current homeowners don't get pushed out? There's efforts you can take to preserve long-term affordability, providing rental assistance. That's more of a big city thing, right? If you've got money to spend, you can subsidize people's rental bills. Or do you want to focus on rehabilitating and renovating existing units to make some, if you have substandard rental housing, you want to help work to get it more up to par. So there's a lot of different pathways you can take here. That's part of what Croy's working with you here on, right? It's figuring out what your priorities are as a community. But the fact that you're all in the room today, and that you've got you may not have consensus, but can you work towards everybody getting on the same page around picking a direction? So I think that's often where the struggle is just, are we pointed in one direction, or are we trying to do too many things at once? And if you pick a direction or two, you're more likely to make some progress. So Daniel, I don't know.
So that's great. Do we have any, I know this is,
kind of bombarding you here, but.
information, but if you may have any questions for.
Just want to clarify, I know you refer to CDFIs. We don't qualify for CDFI in Lincoln County, do we?
You should.
Because of where we are located.
There are different, CDFI is a community development financial institution. You do have disadvantaged census tracts, which is what the federal government's usually looking for. I would be surprised if there's no pathway for CDFI funding on any front, but for housing specifically, there are different things. I would recommend we have some we could potentially get you in touch with that we've worked with. What we've been pleasantly surprised by in our own work with CDFIs is that they're really, really excited to talk to you. We thought they'd be like, oh no, we're busy, everybody wants our money, but they're like, they tend to not have community outreach arms. So if you reach out to them and you're like, we've got some it's better if you've got some project ideas rather than just going and trying to have a really general conversation. But if you've got some project concepts, you're like, this is what we're trying to do. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised that they're pretty open to having conversations. And we have an outfit that we've spoken with a few times based in Chattanooga, so they're pretty local, and they'd probably be interested in chatting at minimum. But I don't, we are vendor agnostic. We're not going to say go work with these guys, but we can at least open up a conversation just because we know they're friendly. So yeah, I wouldn't count on that even in the richest census tracts in the country, there's often still support people, right? So they tend to not be that exclusive.
So I'll do some research on it.
Sure.
I'll do a non-profit, I'll do some research on it.
Yeah.
I couldn't go through a bank here, I don't think. I think it might go through another.
And I'm not a finance person. I make the connections. I don't do the financing
I know
work.
the bank can't do it, but.
Okay.
So if there's another avenue.
So it's definitely worth exploring though. So we can connect you with folks we know. But also, I'd recommend doing some research on your own just because there's so many of them. And, I think the first time we reached out to one, Georgia, we got a response within 20 minutes to our email, and that's been our experience in general. And also, they don't compete with each other. They all talk to each other. So if you get one and they're like, this isn't a good fit for us, but we'd like to get you in touch with our friends who are, more in the wheelhouse you're trying to work in, then that might work in your favor. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I flipped through very
Sure.
quickly, but I'm the Main Street Director, so I
Oh,
noticed
great.
our main space was in here. We received a grant for that space. What other opportunities for grants would there be for TVA to kind of check some more boxes within this?
So, Georgia, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we do something, so we do partnerships, which is the consulting support, but we also do funding opportunities. Our next open call for funding opportunities, we call it a call for pilots, is gonna be in the spring of 25. So if you're not on our mailing list, if you go under it's tva.com/connected communities, you can request to join the newsletter mailing list distribution. And when the call for pilots announces in the spring, it's an opportunity to apply. Those are competitive. We chose 6 pilot projects the last go around. We had 9 that go around before that. So we set an amount of funding and then kind of look at applications and select good ones that fit together for our overall funding limits. Those are focused around, you'll see the 4 focus areas that we select pilot projects from. So energy and environmental justice, enhanced community resiliency, economic empowerment, which is anything economic development related, and broadband digital literacy. So we're looking for projects to fund that are fall within those focus areas.
Thank you, Kristen, very much.
Sure thing.
So I think you can see there's a lot of synergy here, and we appreciate that. This is not exactly what the comprehensive plan is, but they certainly, a lot of what they're doing applies directly to that. So, and I appreciate Ethan and Croy being open to that. We're in that, you can probably see, we're in that kind of weird middle ground where we're kind of turning that crank. We've submitted the information. There is still information coming in. I know Jenny's been very instrumental in talking to the Department of Transportation to get some more data. And as you guys, you know, if you have data or you run across something that you think would be beneficial to Croy as we're putting together this plan, please send it to me and I will get it to them. You know, they're doing the analysis part right now. So I guess our next thing, I guess Ethan, I hope you're still on there. Our next item here is to set a date for the next meeting. So you're saying that you think we'll have sometime in September, early September, we should be ready to talk about our SWOT feedback and the data on that?
Correct, and we'll be going over, so what I think our next meeting will probably address, and I think the next meeting will sort of be more discussion based like our previous one was, is going over the comments that everyone has given us from existing conditions draft, and then talking about what we envision the public engagement materials to be, which will be based on the SWOT feedback you have already given us. So the SWOT, the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis will be in development at that point. And will be what we use to springboard our public engagement. And that sort of the root of that is what everybody has turned in so far. So all of the feedback you've given us are the seeds that were the sort of directions that we will be able to use to start developing that and sort of building that. So yeah, I don't think that a late August, you know, that's going to give me less than a month to put together a SWOT analysis. I don't think that's enough time. And then the first weekend of September, you're dealing with Labor Day traveling. So my thought was to open up the calendars and see what we can land on in September after Labor Day.
Do y'all have any suggestions on that?
Just as far as the public engagement, we set the fair, that's gonna be September 14th to the 21st.
Well, I think he's talking about our next meeting.
I
Is that right?
didn't know where that fell in line. We had to meet before we have the
Oh, I
QR
see.
codes or the thing, and we're trying to get all the information, or
When's the fair date again?
14th to the 21st.
Yeah, so there is possibility that we can have our digital survey, ready, QR codes to distribute there. I don't think, and this can be a decision, I guess, ultimately up to you guys. I could put something together and in the next month for us to go out and meet on September 14th. I don't know that it would be the most thorough or high quality product that you would want. It's the less time I have to spend on it, the less that you're really getting. So I know we had discussed that. I felt like there was an additional, maybe it was the last day of something, was it something in the square that you have every Saturday, first Saturdays?
Saturday in October. It would be slower paced than the fair, not as many people, but maybe people would take stock.
And then right after that.
But like I said, I don't think that we have to settle on a date right now, for the public engagement piece. I think, I could get my, draft of existing conditions to you, and then begin work on SWAT while you all, send your feedback out, back to Daniel. And as that feedback comes in and the SWAT piece gets developed, Houston and I will communicate with Daniel about our progress, and then he will communicate that to you all. And if we're in a good place, we can talk about potentially doing our physical engagement there. I feel better about saying that we could get a digital survey and QR codes and a marketing plan, all of those pieces together for people to be handing out, or even potentially a training and materials for you all to work over. But I don't want to commit to that or to set that in stone today.
So let's talk about our next meeting day. Do y'all have a preference? First or second week in September, or the
Let's see. Labor Day.
first week, Labor Day is the second.
For me to be the first.
First week would work better for you. Do Wednesdays work well, Judge, or is that, did you have a problem with Wednesdays, or?
Just Wednesday morning.
You just Wednesday morning, so this time works. It works well, it seems that everybody,
First and third are utility. First and third Wednesdays.
okay, all right. So maybe the 11th? I mean, I guess we could do the 9th, Monday the 9th. Objections to that? 1 p.m. Ethan, could you do that?
The 9th at 1 p.m. works for me.
And so we'll have, at that meeting, we'll be able to discuss the detailed SWOT analysis, correct?
Yeah, so the SWOT, the draft of the full SWOT analysis should be ready at that point, and then I should have feedback
Oh, it's existing conditions.
already from your existing conditions.
Yeah, so you guys will have a copy of the draft of the existing conditions, please be able to give me feedback on
Yeah, in reality, you guys should be getting that sometime in the next week or so.
that. Okay.
And maybe what I'll do, Daniel, is we can plan on either just a half an hour call with you or an email. And we'll do like a midpoint status check-in in between this meeting and that meeting, just so you have something to deliver to everyone else, and we can maybe use that as the springboard for a more concrete public engagement date. So sometimes say the second week in August, I'll say, hey, here's where I am with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let's take a realistic look about where we think we can be in a month or in 6 weeks, and see what everyone thinks from there.
I'll get that out there. Let you know what it is. So we're saying Monday, September the 9th at 1 o'clock for our next meeting here. We would have had opportunities to get feedback on existing conditions, and then we'll have an opportunity to look at the draft SWOT analysis. The other thing I'd like everybody to think about is the public engagement meeting. As they said, COI will do one. And if we think that's adequate, that's fine. I had kind of hoped that we could do one around the county, one in each district around the county. Each of the 3 commissioners from that district could be there, and we could have it in, schools or wherever we could have them there, so that and if nobody comes, so be it. At least they have an opportunity. We could do our best to advertise it and make sure people are aware of it on social media, radio, newspaper, whatever. And it just gives people an opportunity to come and find out what we're doing and have some input and that kind of thing. But you think about that and we can decide how we want to do it. If we do that, we're kind of on our own. Floyd will come out and demonstrate one, and then we'll be on our own to go out and conduct those in each of the district, and then we can bring it back and give them the data, for continued input. All right, any other comments? I appreciate everybody being here. I know this was kind of a turn the crank meeting. We didn't get a lot of exciting results here, but this is necessary to do. We're just kind of touching base, making sure we're making progress, and I think we're making great progress. I want to thank Kristen and Georgia for being here. This was very much appreciated, and they're being so free with their data and being willing to help. That is just really great, and we appreciate all that. This is some good information. I would encourage everybody to take that and take a look at all of this, their report here. Anything else? I would also be remiss if I didn't thank FPU again. They are so gracious in hosting us here. They do a great job, and they care about the community, and I just appreciate them being willing to let us come and use this facility. So, anything else? All right, Ethan, thank you so much. Christian, Jordan, thank you. We'll convene back on the 9th